Prince William is reportedly formulating a plan to finally strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their HRH titles. Markle is still using her HRH title despite agreeing to drop the title when the Sussexes left royal duties. How is Will planning to deal with this?
Welcome to Royal Daily Report, your #1 source for breaking royal news that the mainstream media won't tell you. I'm your host, and today we bring you a story that will change everything. The British Parliament is taking action against Meghan Markle. This is not a rumor. This is real. This is happening now. Make sure to subscribe to Royal Daily Report and turn on notifications because you cannot afford to miss what comes next. Let's dive in. Inside Westminster, within the old stone corridors that have witnessed wars, abdications, and centuries of political storms, a whisper was starting to move that something was about to break from the House of Lords itself, the oldest legislative chamber in the world. A place where tradition is carved into every oak bench and every coat of arms made a move no one expected. A formal petition, handwritten in the language of constitutional gravity, was placed on record. Its aim was clear: to strip Meghan Markle of the Duchess of Sussex title permanently. This was not gossip. This was not speculation. This was the system speaking, and it spoke loudly. Behind closed doors, senior peers described the moment as unprecedented since the aftermath of Megxit. A portion of Parliament had reached its limit, and the quiet rumblings that had traveled through Westminster for months were finally taking form. For the first time, the British establishment wasn't merely irritated, it was preparing to act. One thing became clear in that moment. This was no longer a feud between a family and its rogue members. This was now a matter of state. The machinery of British power was moving, and it was moving against her. So let me tell you what really happened. The tipping point came thousands of miles away in Nigeria. What was presented publicly as a private trip carried all the trappings of an official royal engagement. Meghan appeared alongside Harry in traditional attire, delivering speeches before crowds, posing with senior military leaders, and accepting honors that traditionally require approval from the palace or the Foreign Office. But according to insiders, no such approval was ever given. Not a single department connected to state diplomacy. Not the palace, not the Foreign Office, had been informed, briefed, or consulted. The trip unfolded as if the Sussexes still held positions within the royal family's working structure, as if the responsibilities of duty had somehow survived their departure. For members of the House of Lords, this was not merely inappropriate, it was dangerous. The language used behind those closed doors was stark. Unauthorized diplomatic posturing, a risk to the Crown's neutrality, a breach of constitutional expectations. In their view, Meghan was performing the role of a royal representative without the authority or accountability that role requires. Photos of her with high-ranking Nigerian officials circulated globally, suggesting an official endorsement that never existed. The optics alone, a duchess acting as a de facto ambassador, was enough to alarm those tasked with protecting the state's diplomatic boundaries. This moment, more than any interview, appearance, or brand partnership, became the catalyst. The Lords concluded that if a private citizen uses a royal title to engage in what looks like international diplomacy, the consequences reach beyond media spectacle. They touch national interests, and when national interests are at stake, the British Parliament does not remain still. This trip didn't just irritate the establishment, it activated it. It pushed the whisper into a declaration. A declaration that a line had been crossed and the title of Duchess of Sussex could no longer remain unquestioned. If you're shocked by what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button for Royal Daily Report right now. Share this video with everyone who needs to know. See guys, royal titles are more than decorative labels. They are constitutional instruments, protected by legislation that predates the modern era of celebrity. And as the Lords reviewed Meghan's public behavior, they carved a path straight into the legal heart of the monarchy. The Royal Titles Act of 1917, a law created in the shadow of World War I, designed to prevent noble titles from being exploited or used for personal advancement outside the monarchy's control. Legal experts, the kind who advise ministers, not gossip outlets, began quietly arguing that Meghan's public use of her duchess identity paired with her media projects could constitute a breach of that act. And once Parliament starts questioning legal compliance, the issue evolves beyond etiquette. It becomes a constitutional violation. Sources reveal that this legal angle became the backbone of the petition. The Nigeria trip raised diplomatic concerns. But the 1917 Act, that was where the law itself entered the conversation. The House of Lords now faced a stark choice. Either ignore what appears to be increasing misuse of a noble title, or enforce the law that has governed royal identities for over a century. And for the first time in Meghan's public saga, enforcement was no longer theoretical. If there was one element that unified critics in Parliament, it was the expanding business empire built around the Sussex name. Not speculation, not rumor, but documented corporate filings, marketing materials, and global media contracts that leaned unmistakably on the Duchess title. It started with the Netflix deal, a multi-million-dollar partnership launched with a documentary that opened on screen with Duke and Duchess of Sussex, not as a courtesy, not as a footnote, but as the visual centerpiece of the first frame, presented in traditional royal fonts. To the Lords, that wasn't entertainment, it was branding. Then came Spotify, then Arcuel, then the attempt to trademark Sussex Royal for global use, a move personally blocked by Queen Elizabeth after advisors warned it would transform a royal designation into a commercial franchise. The petition cites these attempts clearly, calling them unauthorized commercial exploitation of noble status. From Parliament's perspective, this wasn't an accidental overlap between royalty and career. It was a strategy, a calculated shaping of the Sussex identity into a marketable product, one capable of selling documentaries, podcasts, interviews, merchandise, and influence. For centuries, royal titles have been symbols. Under the Sussexes, they became assets. And assets, when misused, trigger laws. Laws trigger petitions, and petitions trigger consequences. Inside Westminster, this chapter of Meghan's evolution was viewed not as ambition, but as transformation. A duchess becoming a global entertainment figure powered by a title she was never meant to monetize. And with that realization, the House of Lords concluded that action could no longer be delayed. This is Royal Daily Report, bringing you the investigations that matter. Don't forget to subscribe and stay informed. Royal Communications Protocol is older than most modern nations. It is a system designed to prevent exactly what the Lords say has happened over the last 4 years. Unsanctioned narratives, uncontrolled messaging, and personal campaigns that overshadow the crown itself. Meghan stepped outside that system repeatedly. Her podcast archetypes became the central example cited in parliamentary discussion. Inside those episodes, she referenced her child's treatment by the royals, her mental health struggles, accusations of racism within the institution, and experiences meant to validate her private work. Each claim rippled far beyond a podcast's audience. Each episode became a headline, and each headline deepened the divide between public perception and palace silence. For the House of Lords, this wasn't media content. It was a breach. They referenced the podcast directly as evidence of violating centuries old rules that forbid royals from making statements that 1. Contradict the monarchy, 2. Embarrass the institution, or 3. Present a private narrative as official truth. Sources say the Lords characterized this as global embarrassment, a humiliation of the institution by someone who still carried its title like a badge of authenticity. In their eyes, Meghan transformed private grievances into public diplomacy without accountability, oversight, or clearance, and Parliament had grown tired of watching tradition unravel on a podcast feed. While the palace kept silent and the monarchy maintained its distance, the public spoke loudly. A national YouGov poll revealed a seismic shift in sentiment. 77% of the British public believe Meghan should lose the Duchess of Sussex title. Support for removal comes from every political group, from conservatives to centrists to progressives. 61% say Prince Harry should lose his titles as well, particularly the HRH styling. These numbers shook Westminster more than any interview, documentary, or media statement. Because public opinion isn't gossip. Public opinion becomes pressure. Pressure becomes mandate. And mandate becomes action. Behind the scenes, sources claimed the House of Lords privately cited this poll as justification for their intervention. They interpreted it as a national mandate, not out of malice, but out of responsibility. The British people were signaling something undeniable. The title no longer reflected duty, loyalty, or public service. Instead, they saw celebrity red carpets, Hollywood deals, public grievances turned into global headlines, and a duchess who lives thousands of miles away in Montecito. Detached from the crown, yet still carrying its name. In the eyes of the British public, the title felt misaligned. In the eyes of Parliament, it felt weaponized. And together, those forces formed the foundation for an unprecedented move. Which leads to the final chapter, the one that transforms this story from controversy into constitutional history. Keep watching Royal Daily Report for the complete truth. Subscribe now so you never miss an update. In the oldest chamber of British power, beneath vaulted ceilings and flickering lamps that have witnessed centuries of history, a petition now rests. A petition that could end Meghan Markle's existence as the Duchess of Sussex forever. This is no longer personal. This is no longer about personality, popularity, or palace politics. This is constitutional. What started as a whisper, a faint murmur slipping through Westminster's corridors, has grown into a full-throated declaration. The House of Lords, guardians of tradition and stewards of royal integrity, has stepped into the vacuum left by a silent monarchy and an exiled duchess. If the petition succeeds, Meghan will face something no modern royal has faced, a statutory revocation of her noble title. Not a voluntary relinquishing, not a negotiated removal, but a legal erasure. The Duchess of Sussex would become a chapter closed, a title rewritten, a name returned to the crown. And this moment, this petition, this unprecedented act, it carries weight far beyond Meghan Markle herself, because the Lords understand something vital. If a royal title can be turned into a brand, it loses meaning. If it can be used without duty, it loses dignity. If it can be commercialized, politicized, and publicized into global entertainment, then the monarchy loses more than respect. It loses power. And that, above all else, is what the House of Lords refuses to allow. So now the world watches quietly, tensely, as the future of the Duchess of Sussex title hangs by a fragile thread. A duchess in California, a petition in Westminster, a monarchy standing still, and a parliament stepping forward. This is not the end of the story. This is the doorway to the next chapter. A moment suspended between tradition and transformation, between silence and consequence. Because once Parliament moves, the world will know whether Meghan Markle's royal era is closing or if the crown itself is preparing to redraw. The boundaries between monarchy, celebrity, and power for the next generation. This has been Royal Daily Report, delivering the stories that will shape history. If this investigation opened your eyes to what's really happening, you must subscribe to Royal Daily Report immediately. Hit that notification bell. Share this video with everyone who deserves the truth. This story is developing fast, and we will be here covering every single moment. I'm your host, and thank you for trusting Royal Daily Report with the truth that matters. Stay informed, stay aware, and most importantly, stay subscribed to Royal Daily Report. We'll see you in the next breaking report.